Imagine waking up one morning and realizing your entire country just doubled in size overnight, but you have absolutely no idea what any of that new land actually looks like. It's wild to think about, right? Well, that is exactly the monumental challenge the young United States faced at the dawn of the 19th century. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive right into one of the most famous journeys in American history to see exactly how they tackled the ultimate mystery of the 1803 Louisiana Purchase.
To wrap our heads around this massive epic, we're going to follow their path chronologically. We'll start with the unknown Western Territory, track their journey up the Missouri, and meet their crucial native allies, including Sacagawea. Then, we'll cross the Rocky Mountains, make that final push to the Pacific and back, before wrapping up with their legacy in our next chapter.
All right, Section 1, the unknown Western Territory. Let's set the stage.
So, the year is 1803. The Louisiana Purchase has just added a staggering amount of territory to the US map. But here's the catch. It was basically a giant blank space to the government. Nobody really knew what was out there. President Thomas Jefferson realized he couldn't just leave it at that. So he decided he needed to send a dedicated team right into the unknown to see what they had actually bought.
But Jefferson didn't just want some joyride. He planned this out meticulously. He tapped his personal secretary Meriwether Lewis and a military officer named William Clark, giving them 4 very specific marching orders. They needed to map the territory, study the plants and animals, establish peaceful diplomatic relations with native nations, and this was a big one, find a direct, navigable water route all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
Section 2, Journey up the Missouri. Let's see how this whole thing kicks off.
In May of 1804, the official Corps of Discovery pushed off from near St. Louis, Missouri. And get this, their permanent team was roughly 30 people. Just about 30 individuals literally stepping off the edge of the known American map into millions of acres of uncharted wilderness.
They started steadily making their way up the Missouri River. But winter out there is no joke. By late 1804, the river froze solid, forcing them to stop and build a winter fort in present-day North Dakota. Now, they didn't just hunker down alone. They actually embedded themselves among the Mandan and Hidatsa nations, which really set the precedent for that diplomacy Jefferson was so keen on.
Section 3, Native Allies and Sacagawea. Honestly, this winter stopover changed everything. It was during this freezing winter that the expedition gained its absolute MVP, Sacagawea. She was a young Shoshone woman who joined the group along with her French-Canadian husband, Toussaint Charbonneau, and her contributions completely immeasurable. Her knowledge of the land and her translation skills effectively made her the lead diplomat for the Corps of Discovery as they pushed further west.
Just to give you an idea of how critical she was, as the group approached Shoshone territory, they hit a wall. They were facing the Rocky Mountains and desperately needed horses to cross them. Without horses, the mission was practically doomed. Sacagawea was the one who helped the group peacefully navigate this territory and successfully negotiate for the exact horses they needed to keep the mission alive.
Section 4, Crossing the Rocky Mountains. With horses secured, they're about to face their most brutal physical test yet.
By the fall of 1805, crossing the Rockies turned into an absolute nightmare. They were battling rugged terrain, freezing weather, and they ran entirely out of food. They were literally starving. Actually, it's pretty safe to say the expedition would have ended right there if not for the Nez Perce Nation. The Nez Perce stepped in, providing the food and the crucial guidance necessary to save the Corps of Discovery from total disaster.
Section 5, The Pacific and Return. Having miraculously survived the mountains, the home stretch was finally in sight.
Traveling downriver, they finally had their moment of triumph. In November 1805, they reached the Pacific Ocean in present-day Oregon. To ride out the winter, they built a small outpost called Fort Clatsop. But remember, reaching the ocean is only half the journey. They spent the winter resting and restocking, because come spring of 1806, they had to turn around and do the whole thing backwards.
Looking at this timeline, the sheer scale of what they pulled off is just mind-blowing. They leave in May 1804, spend a couple of winters in forts, hit the Pacific in late 1805, and finally stagger back into St. Louis in September 1806. That is well over 2 years completely off the grid.
And geographically, that timeline maps out to roughly 8,000 miles traveled round trip. 8,000 miles, by boat, on horseback, and on foot. It was an absolute masterclass in endurance and planning by the young nation, but it was also a testament to the crucial, life-saving cooperation of the indigenous peoples already living there.
Which brings us to Section 6, Legacy and Next Chapter. What did those 8,000 miles actually accomplish?
Let's look at the scorecard against Jefferson's original goals. Scientifically, it was a massive success. They documented hundreds of new plant and animal species. Diplomatically, they logged extensive records of the native nations they encountered. And geographically, they drafted incredibly detailed maps. They did, however, have to deliver the tough news that Jefferson's dream of a direct water route to the Pacific just didn't exist.
But, we really have to look at the big picture here. There's a striking historical irony to all of this. While the expedition's survival relied almost entirely on peaceful, cooperative partnerships with Native Americans, the very maps they created sparked a massive wave of westward American settlement. And over the next few decades, that expansion would bring devastating changes for the very indigenous communities that had helped them survive.
So the Western map is drawn, and American expansion is officially kicking off. But that leaves us with a pretty big question. How is a still young, developing United States supposed to protect this incredibly vast, newly mapped territory? Well, we're going to dive right into how the nation defended its expanding borders in our next chapter, the War of 1812. Thanks so much for exploring the map with us today, and I'll catch you in the next